Hey everyone, it's Michelle from Nannies on Call, and we're bringing you new videos each week to educate and inspire you to be the best nanny you can be. So let's get right to it today. So last week we went over questions to ask during your nanny interview. I'll put a link up there somewhere so you can go to it if you haven't seen that one yet. But today we're going to talk about questions to avoid during your nanny interview. This is specifically for your first nanny interview. So if you're interviewing with a family 1 or 2 times, we kind of want to leave these questions out. The way I'll explain it, I guess, is that think about going on a first date. When you go on a first date, you don't want to attack, so to speak, the person with all these questions about how much money do you make, and when do you plan to get married, and when do you want to have kids, and do you want to go home with me tonight? That's too fast, right? We just need to slow it down. So these are some questions to avoid in your first nanny interview with a family. Some of them might be a little controversial, but hopefully we can tackle that with a description about why we think that you shouldn't talk about these questions in your first nanny interview. So here we go. So number 1 is don't talk about pay, vacation, or benefits in the first interview. I know this is the one that might be a little controversial because, of course, you don't want to spend your time interviewing with a family who doesn't see your value. You don't want to interview with a family that's paying minimum wage if you charge 3 times minimum wage wherever you live, or someone who doesn't want to pay on the books, or whatever the situation is. So I get that's why this is a bit controversial. But we really want you to stand out on your first interview. It's really to get to know each other. So if obviously wage and benefits and those things are important to you, it's something to even establish before you bother interviewing. Because if it's the first question you're going to throw out, you could have just figured that out before you even spent the time to interview with this family. So usually in job postings, you'll see what the wage range is, especially with a nanny agency. We always tell the nannies what the wage range is. So you can find that out ahead of time. If you're working with an agency, you can ask the agency before they set up an interview with the family. They'll always know all of these details, so that's a good way. But if you're going it alone, maybe confirming some of the details ahead of time if they're not in the job posting. Or at the very least, when you're setting up the interview, you can say, just so you're aware, my range is this. If that doesn't fit what you're looking for, I don't want to waste your time or mine. So it's something that should be established and you should know going in. Then in the first interview, you can wow them and impress them with all your education, your background, and your knowledge, and then they'll want to hire you, and then you can ask for the top wage later when the negotiations come in, okay? So that's number 1. Number 2, asking in the first interview, do you mind if I bring my dog or my child to work with me? This is just not an appropriate question for any employer. It doesn't matter if you're applying as a nanny or in any other job. If it's in the job posting, we're looking for a nanny and it's okay if they have the child of their own that they want to bring along, or if you've advertised yourself as a nanny who needs to bring their child, then that's totally fine. But springing it on them in the interview, and we've seen it more than once, not so much with children, but with dogs. Someone saying, oh, I have an older dog. Is it okay if I bring the dog with me? It's just not okay in an interview situation. So maybe down the road, once you get to know the family, they'll allow you to bring your dog. That might be okay, but it's not something you establish in the beginning. Keep in mind, especially with dogs, there are liability problems. If the dog ruins something in their house, if the dog bites their child, I know everyone says that my dog would never do that, but I love dogs, and I'm not sure I would be comfortable having a nanny bring her dog. So keep that out of the first interview. Number 3 has to do with transportation. A lot of nannies seem to ask, are you willing to pay for my transportation to and from work? Again, it's just not appropriate. If that's something you're concerned about, maybe you're driving too far for work and you're worried about gas, or it takes too long to get to the job because it took 2 hours to get to the interview. These are things that are important for you to know before you go to the interview. And asking them to pay just because you live too far away is not their responsibility. Another way is if it's really expensive for transportation where you live, just build it into your hourly rate. Just add it so that you know that you can cover that extra expense. But if it's too far away or you're spending too long on the bus and that's why you're asking for this extra money, that's not the family's responsibility, and this is probably not the position for you. Number 4, do you supply meals? I think if you've been working as a nanny for a long time, most families do allow the nannies to eat within whatever's in the house, or if they're feeding the children a meal, eat at the same time as the children. It happens all the time. It's a totally normal thing. But asking it in the first interview just rubs families the wrong way. They just see it as nitpicking or something extra that you're asking for before you've even gotten to the stage that they want to hire you. So save these for later. Chances are, in 20 years of doing this, there have only been a handful of clients who want you to bring your own food, and it really mostly has to do with either religious beliefs or dietary restrictions, or allergies. So just keep that off the table until you get to know the family, and you'll know once you start interviewing them what kind of family, if they're easygoing or strict or picky or whatever it is. So you'll understand further along in the process if this is an appropriate situation for you, if you want them to supply the food. Okay, number 5, how often do you give bonuses? Again, just not appropriate in the first interview, although we hear it all the time. So bonus is something for doing your job above and beyond. This is not something you should expect every year, and this is not something to be negotiated. Maybe you can negotiate, well, not maybe, you definitely in your contract can negotiate raises. So, expecting a raise after the first year, after 6 months, whatever it is. But bonuses are something given for a job that you went above and beyond, and they feel that you deserve that money. So it's not something to be negotiated, and certainly not something to be asked for in the first interview. Okay, and I think we're on to the final one. Do not give demands in the first interview like, I need 6 weeks off a year. So it just, again, gives the wrong impression. That may be what you want, but you can generally see it in the job posting, and families don't like to be, it just makes families take a step back when you're demanding of anything in the first interview. They just see you as being difficult and demanding right off the bat, and that's not someone they want to work with. They want to work with nannies who are flexible and easygoing and professional. So being demanding in the beginning isn't the way to go. That said, if you are not working right now and you have a trip planned or know you have a trip plan coming up in the future, it is the time to say it. It is the time to say, I just wanted to let you know I've already booked a vacation from this date to this date. Is that going to be a problem? So at least the family knows, and then you're not asking for time off right when you start the job. So those are 6 questions to avoid in your first nanny interview. Of course, many of them need to be discussed before you get hired, but think about your first interview more like a get to know you, first date, find out about their likes, dislikes, go back to the other questions to ask during the nanny interview, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And that way you can get to know them. Because some of these questions may not even be important if you meet the family and you don't even like them. You're not going to take the job no matter what the answers to some of these questions are, because you're not on the same page as them. So leave some of the more difficult questions and the questions about pay, like we talked about, for later when you're negotiating your contract. Once you wow them, show them how professional you are, how much they can't live without you, then you hit them with the harder questions and see if you can negotiate exactly what you want in the contract. I hope that helps. I don't know if you've seen any other questions, or if you have any questions you try and avoid. Just remember, the agencies are here to help you. So if you're working with an agency, they can probably answer most of these questions. And if you're going it alone, just try and save them for further in the conversation on the second interview or when you're negotiating a contract to see if you could make it work, since they love you so much. If you have any questions that you avoid in interviews or that you've seen cause a problem, put them down below. If there's anything else we can help with, please let us know. That's what we're here for. Hope you have a great week, and we will see you next week. Bye.